Hey guys, DM Scotty here. This is a follow-up on my live tabletop role-playing that we did with the Mausoleum. And I thought it might be fun to show in detail the items I used at the table. It's kind of like behind-the-scenes thing as far as like the set pieces and miniatures and the tile themselves and my setup. So, and talk about, also I want to talk about what happened when they got to the top of the Mausoleum, because it was a pretty tough fight in the bottom, and we didn't actually get to the top of the Mausoleum. So I do explain what happened when they did get up there. So if you're interested, watch this video and I'll show you some behind the scenes stuff. Here's a better look at the table, and I wanted to show you guys some stuff in more detail of what I did. As you can see, this if you watch the gameplay video, this was a mausoleum that was the center of some cursed activity, and the players were checking it out. So I almost always use my green mat here. This is a piece of cloth that has a little bit of pile on it, so it looks like a nice green kind of turf, but it's kind of a muted green. It's not a bright green, so it's nice for just about any kind of situation in the game. So this is generally what I use when I play our games, anything outside. And you can see, I have a whole building here. And this is a nice way to, to show a building. And the fog of war means that the players can't see in. So if there are windows here, there are only windows in this on the second floor. So they can't look in here and see what's in here. They'll have to open the door to come in or go up to the upper story. So here, let me showcase a few things. These are the graves that I made. So I've shown how to do those, the open graves. I also have a few other graves that I had bought on eBay, and you could sculpt these if you wanted, but I picked them up. They weren't too expensive, and you can always use this stuff for other things. I also got with this set these little coffins, which are kind of neat. And what was kind of cool about this was this little coffin, even though it was just a decoration, actually came into play later when the characters did something. So that's kind of a neat thing to have, like set pieces that the players, it may inspire the players to actually do something they wouldn't have thought of. I mean, you can describe the scene as you do in theater of the mind, but once they get in the fight and the details, they can, of the details of the fight, they can lose those things that are around, the kind of set pieces that are around, and they may forget about them. So I find this kind of stage really nice to play on. So this here is interesting. This is just I thought it'd be fun to have a path going to the mausoleum, and these are just cardstock pieces that are glued onto another piece of cardstock, and then I use these little wooden bowls and put some green plants in them, and then I painted them brown so it looked like they were dead. So these were like dead rose bushes that were coming up to the mausoleum. Give it a nice creepy look. Now the door, nice door. This was actually made from the Hearst Arts Gothic mold set. And if you watch the video of the play, you saw how the door came into play because more ghouls were coming in until they shut the door. So once they did, that kind of stopped the flow of it. So the door actually came into play, and I wanted to have it so it could open and close. So we got that. And that's kind of our outside. So, if they open the door or enter, then I remove the fog of war piece, which I just cut to fit in the center here. And then I'll go ahead and add the elements to fill out the bottom floor here. So here's the interior of the mausoleum, and I had two sets of stairs going up, and I just did the stairs by doing the thin cardboard and the stair technique. And I did two sets of those, and I've got the pillars. I showed how to do these pillars. These have Hearst Arts bottoms, but these are just cardstock pillars, and I did these and the door and the brazier cups with the marble technique that I showed in the video where I did the pillars. So now these are kind of cool. These were partially Hearst Arts. The bottom part and this decoration here our Hearst Arts. Let's see if I can get it. And the cup here is actually just a wood piece, a wood bowl from the craft store. So I combined those two elements and made this, and then I put a little bit of flocking inside and painted it like spent coals. But these were not just decorations. These had an important role to play, because when the players came in, you saw that they did a really good perception check, and they did notice that there were some holes bored into the ground, and there were tiles. The tiles were pushed aside, and there's a hole going into the ground. Let me show you that real quick. I just did a cardstock base, and then cut up some little squares and made them, and used some flocking on that, and just made it look like an open hole in the floor there. And I painted it with a texture paint also, so it would match. Now, if you watch the video, you saw that they realized that they could move these braziers and kind of plug the hole with them. So that's another example of the terrain, having a nice part in the scene. And they didn't have to do that, but that was an option. And if you describe this, unless you make it obvious, and describe the braziers a lot in theater of the mind, they might not remember that they had the braziers there that they could move, because it wasn't until later in the fight that they thought about, our idea mage thought about that they could try to move these over the holes. So if you describe this scene with the pillars and the braziers and stuff like that, the players may actually forget that these braziers were here and that they could pull them over the holes, unless you keep bringing attention to them, which is just too obvious. So they just were a sort of a set piece at first, and then they realized that they could use them in an alternate way. So yeah, that's what I really like about setups like this, that the players can get very creative with what they do. Now the video, I only have a limited memory on my camera, and the video only ran to a certain point on this. And it was a pretty tough fight, so it took a long time. And we usually only get together once a month, so it takes people to... This was the start of the game, and it gives people a little bit to get back in the swing and get their powers and all this kind of thing. They're not really hardcore gamers, so it takes them a little bit to get back in the swing. So basically, the whole video took up this whole bottom floor encounter, but there's an upper floor encounter where the cursed woman that they're after, or she's the center of the curse, is thereafter. So I'll go ahead and show the top floor. So here's the upper floor. These are the stairways that are coming up, and the windows are rose-colored stained glass windows. So there's this rose-colored light streaming in, and there's basically like the dais in the center, and then there's a stand and a sarcophagus on top. And all this is just my standard tiles, and I just set this right on top of the other tile. All this is my standard techniques for my tiles, and then I added the windows. I did that in my my one video where I showed you doing just the regular windows in there, but I did like a stained glass, so I did those kind of a pinkish color. And then here I have the sarcophagi, which is really neat. This actually I bought online on eBay, and it's really nice. It came with that set with the open graves and the caskets. So it really worked out well. Now the other piece here is a Hearst Arts mold that it's 4 pieces from our Hearst Arts mold, and I just glued them together with goop. Goop works really well on these pieces too. It's great. I love that glue. And I just painted them like the marble that I did with the other pieces. So there we go. So when the players came up here, they didn't see anybody up. They came over, looked in the sarcophagi. One of my players has a sun sword, so it shines a lot of light, but there was some gothic ribbing that goes up into the ceiling, and these ghouls and the lady were hiding up there. And they dropped down after after the players looked in the sarcophagi and there's nothing in there. We rolled initiative and they dropped down. I want to show you what a couple of those figures look like, and I'll talk about what I used. So here was the Lady Varn herself. Pretty creepy looking miniature. This is from Mage Knight, and I just rebased it and repainted it. I liked it because her face is ripped open, and that's how I described her. And she actually caused some fear to the players, and they had to roll against that. So that was kind of nice. And she was a real monster. They didn't end up destroying her. They figured out that her soul had been captured, so that if they killed her, she would just resurrect. So they were just they were wasting their time. But she was giving them a really hard time, and by the time they gave up, she hadn't even been bloodied yet. So she was a pretty tough cookie. Let me show you some of the other guys I got. Now the ghouls are from Mantic Games, and they're pretty nice looking. And in the video I described how the blue, their eyes were blue, and that has something to do with a clue to what's going on. So I don't want to say that because my players might watch this, but you can see on the base I put Roman numerals, and that's how I mark my miniatures. And I find that easier to paint on the base than a number, because these are fairly thin bases, and it's a little easier to put the number on there. Here are a few rats I used, giant rats I used for the scenario, and they came out really well. A friend of mine, actually one of the players in the game, painted these for me, and she has some real skill. She was one of those people who had never painted before, and when we started playing, everybody wanted to paint their character, so I had kind of a down and dirty lesson, and she just excelled at the painting. So a lot of times I'll give her miniatures to paint for me, so another great resource for me. But yeah, those are the rats I used. These are just the Reaper Bones miniatures, and dirt cheap, and they look really good, so they worked out great. Now here is a Gru model that I used, and I used this for a ghoul also, but I used it for a child. Because it's small, it worked out perfectly for that. And it was interesting because she was basically riding on the lady's back, and the other players didn't see her, and she jumped off at an opportune time to attack. And one of the players realized they kind of recognized her, but couldn't place her. They didn't roll very well on their intelligence check, so they couldn't quite place where she was from. But it turned out that when they were coming to this doomed town, they had stopped at this tower that had been overrun by ettercaps, because the tower had no help because the Varnhold was under a curse. So she was, they found the guard captain's journal, and he did watercolors of his family, and he did a watercolor of his little girl, and it was a little girl. So they ended up capturing her, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So when the Lady Varn came down, she stood on her sarcophagi, so she had a clear field of the room. She also had this curse. She could do this field of negative energy, which was like this. So pretty big field that she could cast, and also act like a darkness where people couldn't see through it or out of it, except the ghouls could. So if ghouls were in it, they could, but the players couldn't. Also, you couldn't be healed in it. So if you're in it, if you were caught in it, the cleric, the Templar, couldn't heal you. So this was a double tricky thing. And she also had a power where she could drag people into it. So it was really difficult. I had a fun technique for determining where people go, and I'll go ahead and talk about that. So say we have a character that got hit in the blast template. So basically, if they wanted to get out, I would have them roll. And what I have is a scatter die, and this is from Games Workshop. It has different arrows on it for direction. Now there's also a hit that has an arrow, so you could either take that as the arrow, or you could take it as a hit depending on what game you're playing. So there, say says he wants to move out of this. Well, he might be confused because it's pitch blackness and he could get disoriented. So what I had them do was roll a saving throw, and if they made it, they could choose which way they went out. If not, they had to roll the scatter die. So I'd roll it by the character, and then they would move that direction. So he ends up actually in the corner of the room, bumping into the wall, trying to get out of this thing. So that was really fun. Fun way to do that, to just add some more chaos to the fight. And you could use a scatter chart or anything like that, but the die is fun because whatever way it lands, that's the way the character is going to go. So that's what I did for that. So when the characters were fighting, the lady had moved at that point, and the little girl jumps down by a character and attacks like a regular ghoul, and since the character couldn't remember where he knew he had seen her somewhere, but he couldn't remember, they decided that she must maybe had something important to do with the curse. So they ended up grabbing her and trying to get out. So they decided to one of the mage character had a magic rope and smashed a window and ended up getting on the ground. And then another character grabbed the little girl and had to try to fight her, hold her off while she's trying to tear his face off, and then dragged her to the window and then dropped her down to the ground, which she went prone when she hit. But so then the other characters quickly, got out of here, either jumped out the windows or came down the rope. And that's when the coffin came in handy, because they decided they could put her in the coffin, and one character had some steel spikes, so they spiked it shut, took her in there, and later on when they discovered that they didn't think she had anything to do with the curse, they were trying to decide what to do with her, and they're like, well, if we let her go, she's going to go back, and she'll be undead and cursed. And most of the characters had decided they were just going to burn the coffin. But one of the characters very staunchly wanted to not do that, and she was a cleric, so she wanted to break the curse and put the dead to rest properly. But she was kind of outruled, and they ended up burning the coffin, and the little ghoul, we call her the little ghoul, the little girl inside was scraping the lid of the coffin and screaming and trying to get out. So I tried to make it as horrible as possible for them, but so they ended up cremating her, and that took care of that. But anyways, so that was another interesting part to the encounter, the whole little girl thing. And they did have some ties to her, because they had seen her before in the guard's journal, where he had done watercolors of her. So that's how it ended up, and they are moved on to the next part of the game. So I just wanted to show you all the setup, and show you all the pieces of the setup and how it worked and everything, and give you close-ups and talk about how I had crafted the scene. So if you like this kind of thing, if you like if you like the gameplay vid, to me, like I've said, they're not that exciting, but a lot of people have liked it, and it does help show the gridless method to play. I can do more of these. I'll just set up the camera and film the table, and I'll do some more. So just let me know if you like these, and I will do some more actual play videos for you. So take care. DM Scotty signing off. Hey guys, if you're really digging these videos and would like some more information or to talk to other crafters, look at the link below in the description, and you can join my forum on the DM's Craft. We'd love to have you, and I'll see you there.